Welcome to Life Stories, where we share heartfelt tales of resilience, love, and the extraordinary power of the human and animal spirit. Today's story follows Bailey, a brave mother dog who runs into a police station with her puppies, seeking help in the face of danger. What unfolds is a gripping journey of courage, empathy, and the profound bond between a mother and her children. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to follow along with more incredible stories like this one. Let's begin today's inspiring tale. The morning sun cast a gentle glow over the quiet streets of Springfield, Illinois, as life stirred lazily awake. Inside the small-town police station, the atmosphere was routine, mundane. Even Officer Mike Johnson sat at his desk, flipping through stacks of paperwork, while faint chatter from his colleagues hummed in the background. The station's rhythm was steady, predictable, and comfortable. But comfort is a fragile thing. And that morning, it was shattered in an instant. The door to the station creaked open with surprising force, and Mike instinctively looked up, his pen pausing mid-signature. At first, he saw nothing out of the ordinary. People came and went all the time with complaints, lost items, or questions. But this time, it wasn't a person who entered, it was a dog. She was a golden retriever, though her golden coat was almost unrecognizable beneath the layers of mud and dirt. Her ribs were faintly visible beneath her filthy fur, and her movements were frantic yet purposeful. She panted heavily, her chest rising and falling with visible effort. Clamped gently in her mouth was a tiny, squirming puppy. For a moment, the station froze. The sight was so unexpected, so surreal, that no one reacted immediately. Then, without hesitation, the dog padded toward the center of the room. Her eyes were wide and searching, filled with a desperation that seemed to plead for understanding. She carefully placed the puppy on the floor, nudged it softly with her nose, and then turned back toward the door, sprinting out before anyone could stop her. Mike blinked, startled, and then quickly moved toward the tiny creature left behind. It was trembling, its frail body barely larger than his hand. Its soft whimper pierced through the stunned silence of the station. "Hey, little guy," Mike murmured, kneeling beside the puppy. "Where's your mom?" As if in answer, the mother dog burst through the door again, this time carrying a second puppy. She repeated the same routine, placing the puppy next to the first and rushing out once more. By the time she returned with a third, the urgency of the situation was impossible to ignore. Officers, previously busy with their tasks, abandoned their work and gathered around. Whispers of confusion filled the room. "What's going on?" one of Mike's colleagues muttered. "She's trying to tell us something," another replied, or creeping into their voice. When the dog finally returned with a fourth and final puppy, her body seemed to collapse beneath the weight of exhaustion. She placed the last pup gently on the floor, then lay down beside her babies, her chest heaving with every labored breath. Mike felt a lump rise in his throat as he knelt beside her. Her eyes, though tired, were filled with something that tugged at his heart: trust, desperation, and perhaps a flicker of hope. "Someone grab a blanket and water," he called out, his voice steady but urgent. Officer Linda Carter hurried over with a soft blanket. Spreading it out on the floor, Mike gently lifted the puppies onto the makeshift bed, his hands careful as if the tiny creatures might break under the slightest pressure. The mother dog watched him intently, her eyes never leaving his face. "You've been through something, haven't you?" Mike murmured, his tone soft as he ran a hand gently over her matted fur. The dog's response was not verbal, of course, but the way her gaze softened seemed to convey more than words ever could. She had risked everything to bring her puppies here. But why? The room was quiet now, every officer sensing the weight of the moment. Speculation bubbled among the group. "Maybe she's a stray who wandered in," someone suggested. "No stray acts like this," Linda replied, shaking her head. "She came here for a reason." Mike's brow furrowed. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. His eyes traveled to the scratches on her legs and the burrs tangled in her fur. The signs of a desperate, difficult journey were clear. But the question remained, what had driven her to the station? The answer, Mike suspected, wasn't a simple one. As he looked at the trembling puppies, huddled together for warmth, a protective instinct surged within him. Whatever had forced this brave mother to run, she had brought her family to the safest place she could think of. "We need to figure this out," he said firmly, rising to his feet. "But first, we make sure they're okay." He crouched beside the dog again, placing a small bowl of water near her mouth. "Here you go, girl," he said softly. "You've done enough. Rest now." The dog lifted her head weakly, her tongue flicking out to lap at the water. Her eyes darted toward her puppies, and she let out a soft whine as though to reassure herself that they were safe. In that moment, Mike felt the enormity of her actions. This wasn't just a dog. She was a mother, a protector, a fighter. And whatever horrors she had faced, she had carried her pups through them to ensure their survival. But as the dog finally allowed herself to relax, her body trembling with exhaustion, Mike couldn't ignore the unease gnawing at him. There was something she wasn't telling them, something she couldn't. And whatever it was, it had followed her here. The quiet of the police station was unsettling now, a stark contrast to the chaos of moments earlier. Officer Mike Johnson knelt beside the mother dog, Bailey, watching as she lay on the blanket, her body trembling with exhaustion. Her puppies, tiny and frail, huddled together for warmth, their soft whimpers breaking the silence. Bailey's chest rose and fell heavily, her eyes darting toward the door every so often, as though expecting something or someone. Mike exchanged a glance with Officer Linda Carter, who had been carefully placing another blanket around the puppies. Her expression mirrored his own unease. "This isn't normal," Linda said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "She didn't just wander in by accident. She came here for a reason." Mike nodded, his eyes narrowing as he glanced at the scratches along Bailey's legs and the dirt caked onto her paws. "She's been running," he replied, his tone firm. "And she didn't just choose this place at random. She knew this was a safe haven." "But from what?" As if on cue, Bailey let out a low, guttural whine, her ears perking up as her gaze fixed on the door. Her body tensed, a quiet warning that sent a chill down Mike's spine. He reached out to steady her, his hand gently stroking her matted fur. "Hey, it's okay," he murmured. "You're safe now." But Bailey didn't seem convinced. Her eyes stayed locked on the door, her breathing quickening. The officers around her fell silent, their earlier murmurs of curiosity replaced with a growing sense of apprehension. Linda moved closer to Mike, her voice low. "Do you think she's warning us?" Mike frowned, glancing toward the station entrance. "Maybe. Something's definitely spooked her." Unable to ignore Bailey's growing agitation, Mike stood and walked toward the door, his hand instinctively brushing against the holster at his side. He opened the door cautiously, stepping out into the quiet morning air. The street outside was calm, the hum of small-town life carrying on as usual. But as Mike's eyes scanned the area, something caught his attention. Far down the road, near the edge of the woods, a black truck was parked. Its engine idled softly, and its tinted windows gave no hint of who might be inside. The sight sent a wave of unease rippling through Mike. He didn't recognize the vehicle, and it didn't belong to anyone in town. His instincts kicked in. This wasn't just a coincidence. Mike turned back toward the station, his mind racing. "There's a truck parked near the woods," he said to Linda as he re-entered. "Doesn't look familiar. I think she might have been running from something or someone." Linda's brow furrowed. "You think whoever was after her might still be out there?" Mike glanced at Bailey, who was still staring intently at the door. "If that truck's tied to this, they're not here by accident. She brought her puppies to us because she had no other choice." Bailey let out another sharp bark, her body rigid with tension. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of her warning sinking in. Linda stepped closer to Mike, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "We need to act fast. If someone's after her, they're not going to stop." Mike nodded, his jaw tightening. "Let's call animal control and see if they can help us move her and the pups somewhere safe. And we need backup." As Linda moved to make the calls, Mike knelt beside Bailey again. Her eyes met his, filled with a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "We'll keep you safe," he promised softly. "No one's going to hurt you or your babies." But even as he spoke the words, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. Outside the station, the black truck remained, its presence a silent threat. Whatever Bailey had escaped, it wasn't over yet. And Mike knew they needed to be ready for what was coming. The tension in the station was palpable as the officers worked to secure the mother dog, Bailey, and her puppies. Mike Johnson paced near the door, his eyes flicking outside to where the black truck sat like a shadow at the edge of the woods. Something about it gnawed at him, a quiet menace that refused to be ignored. Linda Carter returned from the back room, phone in hand. "Animal control is sending someone, but it'll take at least 30 minutes. Backup is on its way too." Her voice was steady, but the concern in her eyes betrayed her unease. Mike nodded, glancing back at Bailey, who lay protectively beside her puppies. The golden retriever's eyes were sharp, her body tense despite her exhaustion. "We might not have 30 minutes," he said grimly, as if sensing his urgency. Bailey let out another low growl, her gaze fixed on the door. Her warnings were becoming more frequent, more insistent, and Mike couldn't shake the feeling that she knew something they didn't. "I'm going to check that truck," he said, his tone resolute. Linda's brow furrowed. "Be careful. If someone's out there, they're not going to be happy you're poking around." Mike offered a faint smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "I'll be fine. Just keep an eye on her and the pups." Stepping outside, Mike moved toward the truck, his steps measured and deliberate. The morning air was crisp, the kind that carried sound farther than usual. Each crunch of gravel beneath his boots felt amplified, echoing in the stillness. The truck sat ominously at the edge of the woods, its engine no longer running. As Mike approached, he noted faint scratches along the side of the vehicle, as though something or someone had clawed desperately at the metal. His gut tightened. Peering into the truck bed, he saw a dirty blanket smeared with mud and faint traces of what looked like blood. Coiled ropes lay beside it, frayed at the ends, as if they'd been cut in haste. Mike's chest tightened with the weight of what he was seeing. This wasn't just neglect. This was something far worse. The sound of footsteps behind him made him turn abruptly, his hand instinctively moving to his holster. It was Linda, her expression mirroring his own unease. "Find anything?" she asked quietly. Mike gestured toward the truck bed. "Blankets, ropes, blood. This isn't just someone looking for a lost dog. Whoever owns this truck was involved in something cruel." Linda's jaw tightened as she took in the scene. "Dogfighting?" Mike nodded grimly. "That's my guess. She must have escaped, probably with her pups. And now they're trying to get her back." Linda's face paled slightly. "We have to move her, Mike. If they realize we're onto them, they'll stop at nothing." As if to punctuate her words, Bailey's sharp bark carried from the station, the sound urgent and frantic. Mike and Linda exchanged a glance before hurrying back inside. Bailey was on her feet now, her body trembling but her gaze fierce. Her puppies let out faint whimpers, their tiny bodies pressing closer together on the blanket. The officers in the room froze, sensing the shift in her demeanor. "What is it, girl?" Mike asked, crouching beside her. Bailey's growls deepened, her eyes darting toward the windows. It wasn't just fear, it was a warning. She was protecting her family. Linda stepped closer to Mike, her voice low. "Whatever's happening, It's coming to us now. Mike straightened, his face set with determination. Then we'd better be ready. Outside, the faint sound of an engine rumbled to life. The black truck had moved. And whoever was behind the wheel, Mike suspected, wasn't going far. Bailey's bravery and resilience not only saved her puppies but also brought an entire community together. Her story reminds us of the power of love and the importance of standing up against cruelty. With her puppies now safe in loving homes and Bailey finding a forever home with Officer Mike, this tale of courage leaves a lasting impact. Thank you for watching Life Stories. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of hope and resilience. See you in the next video.